I started playing video games because I wanted to figure out what happened to film, and I figured out what happened.
All right, John, let's start with this fishbowl here. Give me,
All right.
yes. You're going to do 2 questions.
Okay. What's a habit someone on set that you've what's a habit someone on set has that you have accidentally started doing in real life? I don't do anything by accident except for, well, I probably do most things by accident. So, oh, I know one that, well, I did this. Since I'm an old timer now, I worked with this great actor, which people under 20 might not know, but who should, named Paul Newman. And Paul Newman used to, in the mornings, he would just have this big bowl of ice, and he used to stick his head underwater in a bowl of ice, and it got the puffiness out of his eyes. And so I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And he also did it in The Sting. You ever remember The Sting? And so I thought that was the coolest thing ever, so I started doing that, and it really wakes you up.
I will say, if you're going to take somebody's notes,
Right?
or pick up a habit from someone, Paul Newman's probably a pretty good person.
I was like 21, 22 at the time. There's Paul Newman.
What is it like when you are, starting out and get these opportunities to work with an incredible actor like Paul Newman? What is it like to be able to, not just, the puffiness, but to take away those lessons early in your career?
It was kind of, I was kind of in awe of them, so I've had a really blessed life where I've gotten to meet some of my heroes and even become friends with some of them, which is a very surreal thing. But what I found was I was never disappointed in the quality of their character, if you like their work. So very rarely would you meet someone, obviously you can meet someone on a bad day or whatever, but if you get to work with them and know them, I was very rarely disappointed with who they were as a person. They were, very high character people and very generous. And, they would look after you because they knew you were a young actor that admired them. So I got to do that with a bunch of folks.
Who was that biggest hero that you got a chance to work with?
Oh, I don't know if I got to work with so many. I got to work with Paul Newman, Al Pacino, Gene Hackman, the list goes on and on. So Robert De Niro.
And now you get to be the hero to some folks as well. I'll have you do the second question.
All right. What is your secret, nerdy, guilty pleasure? Okay. I don't think it's too nerdy, but I do like graphic novels. I'm an original Star Trek fanatic, the show. Mm-hmm. That's not too nerdy, is it? It's a little nerdy.
I mean, it's perfectly nerdy for Comic-Con.
Right. And then I also, I started playing video games because I wanted to figure out what happened to film, and I figured out what happened.
Video games.
But it was interesting because it was fun to play around, and there's interesting different worlds and a lot of creativity in there. And I found it fun. I was really bad at first. I had to be on like story mode to get through them, but I really enjoyed some of the more surreal ones. Like there's this one called Control that's really bizarre. So I like those.
What's the one you think you probably spent the most time playing?
Well, I got through all of Control.
Okay.
And I got through, what was the Callisto Protocol, which is a really good zombie one. And then there's another one where you run around blowing up LA called Dead Island 2, which is pretty fun because you get to, blow up hotels.
When you mentioned graphic novels, obviously that is why you're here at Comic-Con this year. What was it that made you come up with the idea of translating a story that way?
Well, I always thought they were the closest, things to film, really. They're shot, you're picking out shots and they're so cinematic. So I thought I wanted to tell a story, but I didn't want to negotiate telling a story, really. Yeah. And when you ask somebody to put like $20, $30 million into a bank account, they want to have an opinion and they're afraid and all that stuff. So this was just like, I wrote it and I said, I like this story. And then I got this beautiful wonderful artist Ignacio No to do the illustrations. And so nobody edited anything I wrote or that he drew. And so it's really a piece of work that was just done by two people in a mad cave, who did a great job putting it out. But it was just me and Ignacio's story. And that doesn't happen today. So it's a kind of an anti-algorithm thing. Like there's no committee and there's no computer up in Seattle that's poll testing it.
Well, what was your process of writing it? Because, well, actually, maybe we should start first with give me the premise and what inspired you to write Momo.
Well, it's kind of based on a true story in the sense that, Jackie Gleason and Richard Nixon did fly up to the Hampstead Air Force Base. And if you look online, there's flight logs of the helicopter from the Air Force 2 or whatever it is. And on the flight logs are Jackie Gleason, Richard Nixon, a guy named Vernon Coffey, and a redacted name. So I, of course, knew that was Anton Artaud. So if you look up all the players in it, it all tracks out, and it's kind of a true story, in my opinion. And I got somebody named Fat Leonard gave me some files, and I just sort of thought it'd be better to actually just tell the story than worry about where these came from.
But when you have, a nice, chunky, beautiful graphic novel like this, what was your process of writing it? Because are you someone who likes to wake up every morning and you get on the laptop, or how did you go about the actual process? Well,
a good friend of mine who wrote the foreword and I were talking about how much we loved Artaud and what a wizard he was. And we were thinking about doing a film about him. And then we realized that the best version of the film would only be about a minute long, which would be Artaud rising from the sea like Godzilla, and then smashing civilization, and with the theme of the monsters going. So it wouldn't really be a very short film. And he agreed that was the best version of the film. So then I started playing around with this idea because I really was interested in this story about Nixon and Gleason seeing aliens and conspiracies. So I just wrote, and I write first as if you're writing for just a friend, and then later I think, well, do I care what the market thinks? And I go, no. And then I just finished writing it, and I thought I like it, and then the illustrator liked it, and so I said, well, just draw what you want, and I'll tell you what I think, but you can draw what you want.
Of course, because it is the age of adaptations. You wrote this in large part because this was the best way that you saw the story. But do you see now the potential, now that it's out and now that it's done, film, TV, if you were to adapt it for the screen, how would you want to do it?
Well, it's not really, I wouldn't have to adapt it. It's pretty much shot for shot the way I see the book and the film. So, there'd probably be a little bit more, obviously, but it's really, it's, I sort of, think cinematically, and I realize graphic novels are a super fun thing to try, and I'd never tried it. So I started working with Ignacio, and I really enjoyed it. And so we're working on our second one now.
Okay, a little bit of breaking news. But before we move on too much from Momo, do you see yourself directing it, acting in it? What role would you want to play in the film version when you get this greenlit?
If people like it, and somehow the public liking it enough where a studio says, oh, we need to make a movie of this, then I would play Johnson.
What is it about?
Or if they wanted someone else, I could play Bonaparte.
And you said you were working on the second one.
Mm-hmm.
What was your inspiration to do another graphic novel?
I just enjoyed the process of it, and the freedom of telling a story that you want to tell just because you want to tell it, and not having to worry about the market or the algorithms or any of the way things are now. Because I think in art, ambiguity is a really cool thing. So it's good to not know how you feel about certain things or to feel confused, whereas the people who are interested only in money, they want certainty. They want it to be like McDonald's. Know exactly what you're going to get. I was like, well, I want to make something more experimental. So it was really wonderful just to be able to write whatever you want and then be happy with it, or at least happy enough to say, yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. And then not, start to chop it up and, to please someone else.
Can you tease what the new one's about?
It's about, it's called The Chemical Wedding. It's about a mythological, perhaps, or not, feature named Christian Rosenkreutz, who is said to be the Count of Saint Germain as well. So it's a very, it's even weirder than this, which is pretty weird. But then there's a possible sequel to this if people like it.
Okay, so we'll get a sequel, a movie, and a second graphic novel. I mean,
I
John,
think you can get at least 2 or 3 more graphic novels.
I will take them.
Because it's so, if you write a script and then in order to get it financed, it's like 2 years of kind of, sometimes 10 years to try to get the money for it. And then you have to shoot it, which is its own thing, edit it, which is its own thing. And then it has to survive the people who are putting the money up, not trying to turn it into something else. So it becomes something that's like a very, it's like a siege, to make a film sometimes. And this was like, okay, you mean there's no army coming to, attack?
Looking back, what was the film that taught you that lesson of how tricky it is to get something made?
Oh, well, I've been very lucky because when I started making films, there were still all the people from the 60s and the 70s who were still active in the late 80s, 90s. Yeah. And when I started making films, it was like the late 80s when I was a 15-year-old. And so there was still that, the market wasn't everything, or advertising, and it wasn't everything. There were still, people that who still wanted to make something that they were proud of, that was, they would be like art, and so there was always that contrast, but between art and money, but it turned more and more corporate. Like the people who used to run studios weren't part of huge conglomerates. They were just people who ran studios. And, if you made a handshake deal with some of them, you could maybe do something. So I was very lucky. I had one of those guys, this guy named Joe Roth, who ran Disney, and really great guy, old school guy, had directed before and produced a lot. And he let me make Grosse Pointe Blank and High Fidelity, and, totally unmolested. So I was very, very lucky to, straddle those 2 eras.
And onward from there. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks
really
for having me.
Appreciate it. And congratulations.
Thank you.